I returned from a work trip and found my brother and his wife living in my apartment. They had changed the locks, packed my things, and said I should rent somewhere else because they had a child now. My grandmother used to tell me that family promises were sacred, that blood always came first. But when I returned to New York City after a work trip and found my brother living in my apartment, I realized what a lie that was. "Oh, look who's back, Nathan," my older brother said, with a grin that was far too relaxed for the situation. He was sitting in my living room, his feet propped up on my coffee table, the same dark wooden table my grandmother had bought at a flea market in New Orleans, and that I had restored with my own hands. Now it was covered in sticky cup rings and crumbs. Beside him, Jessica, his wife, scrolled through her phone, not even pretending to be uncomfortable. Meanwhile, their son played on the floor with a toy car, but not just any toy car. My toy car, the tiny Chevy Camaro model my grandfather had given me when I was a child. A knot tightened in my stomach. I dropped my suitcase at the door, my eyes scanning the disaster. The rug I had brought back from Morocco was wrinkled and stained with juice. A painting I had carefully hung on the wall was now crooked, and worst of all, my photos were gone. "What on earth are you doing here?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt inside. Jessica let out a fake little laugh. "Well, Nathan thought that since you were away we could settle in. It's hard to find a decent place with a kid, and since this was Grandma's house..." Grandma's house. That's what they called it, as if the will didn't exist, as if my name wasn't on the papers. "Settle in," I repeated in disbelief. "Come on, don't make a big deal out of it," Nathan said, standing up with an annoyed expression. "Grandma always wanted this house to stay in the family, and you're alone while we have a child. Do you really need this much space?" Anger burned through me like fire. "Grandma left me this apartment in her will," I said through clenched teeth. "It's not for the family, it's mine." Nathan let out a dramatic sigh and shook his head. "Don't be selfish, Lauren. Think about the kid." Unbelievable. Not only were they stealing my home, but they were trying to make me feel guilty about it. "How did you have the nerve to move in without even telling me?" I asked, feeling the heat rise to my face. "Don't exaggerate," he replied, looking at me condescendingly. "We're just here until we find something better." I looked around, feeling a mix of disgust and despair. They hadn't just moved in, they had changed things as if trying to erase my presence. The lavender plant I kept in the kitchen was gone, replaced by a container of baby formula. The handmade beige and blue blanket my grandmother had knitted was missing from the couch. In its place, there was an ugly synthetic throw covered in teddy bears. They were replacing me in my own home. Jessica stood up, crossing her arms in irritation. "If you were a generous person, we wouldn't be having this conversation." I let out a humorless laugh. "If you were decent people, we wouldn't be having it either." My heart pounded as I looked at them. They thought they could walk all over me. They thought I would just say yes. I didn't have a plan yet, but one thing was certain: I wasn't going to let them get away with this. The elevator smelled of damp and cheap bleach, that unmistakable scent of early morning cleaning in old Manhattan buildings, but when I reached the door of my apartment, all I smelled was invasion. The door was slightly ajar. The lock had been changed. Nathan and Jessica hadn't just moved in. They had taken full possession. I shoved the door open and walked in without asking permission. The mess was still there, but now I saw it differently, as a declaration of war. My grandmother's old armchair, the one that always smelled of her violet perfume, was now covered with a cheap gray blanket. The hand-embroidered cushions she had stitched herself were gone. Had they thrown them away? My desk, where I used to write at night with a glass of wine, was now piled with messy baby clothes. But the worst part, my belongings were stacked in boxes in the hallway. "What on earth is this?" My voice was sharp, ice cold. Nathan walked out of the kitchen holding a cup of coffee as if this were his own home. "Oh, Lauren, you're back early." "Don't waste my time with nonsense, Nathan. Why are my things in boxes?" Nathan shrugged and set his coffee cup down on the counter with a sharp thud. "Jessica thought it would be better to reorganize the space a little, you know, so the kid could have his own room." "His own room," I repeated, unable to believe what I was hearing. "Lauren, it's just a house." I let out a bitter laugh. "No, Nathan, it's my house." That's when Jessica appeared in the hallway, looking annoyed, a bowl of cereal in her hand. "Come on, Lauren, do you really need all this drama?" she said, shoving a spoonful of cereal into her mouth. "You have money. I'm sure you can rent another place." I stared at her in disbelief. Excuse me? Sweetheart, Nathan chimed in, using the same conciliatory tone he always used when trying to convince Mom he hadn't stolen money from her purse. We're just saying you could share. It would really help us out. Share. I laughed, though there was no humor in my voice. And how exactly do you share your home with me? Oh, wait, you don't. Jessica sighed and set her bowl of cereal down on the table. You're so selfish, Lauren. And you're a freeloader, I shot back without hesitation. Nathan's face tensed. There's no need to make this ugly. Oh, really? I stepped forward, noticing how Jessica instinctively moved slightly behind him. You know what actually needs to happen. You two need to get out of my apartment. Lauren. Nathan tried his older brother voice, the one that always worked on me when we were kids. Mom and Dad also think it would be best if we use this place. There it was, the real reason behind all of this. It wasn't just Nathan and Jessica. Mom and Dad were behind it too. Rage burned inside me. Mom with her constant, family should always help each other. Dad with his silent complicity. For years they had seen me as the strong one, the independent one, the one who always had to give in. Not this time. I crossed my arms and looked at them with a cold smile. Interesting. I'd love to hear what a judge has to say. Jessica blinked in confusion. Nathan paled. What? I pulled out my phone and held it up for them to see. I have the inheritance papers. I have pictures of my things in boxes, proof that you changed the locks and moved in without my permission. Do you really want to play this game and see what happens? Nathan clenched his jaw. You wouldn't take us to court. I wouldn't be so sure, I said, scrolling my finger across the screen as if I were already looking up a lawyer. Jessica quickly leaned toward Nathan and whispered something in his ear. He looked annoyed, but said nothing. I stood there waiting. For the first time, I watched as control slipped from their hands. They had no idea what to do, because for the first time, I wasn't playing the role of the understanding sister. I didn't have a perfect plan yet, but one thing was clear: this wasn't going to end the way they expected. Nathan ran a hand through his hair, exasperated. His eyes flickered between Jessica and me as if searching for an easy way out. Jessica, on the other hand, had no problem continuing to play the victim. Lauren, you don't have to act like this. We're just trying to organize things as a family. I laughed right in his face. Organize. No, sweetheart, organizing means asking before barging into someone else's home. What you're doing is theft. Jessica let out an annoyed sound and crossed her arms. Oh my God, such drama. We're just trying to have a better life. At my expense. She shrugged as if it were the most normal thing in the world. Nathan, who had been trying to keep his usual conciliatory tone, changed tactics. You know what Mom and Dad are right about you. You think you're better than us just because you have money and can afford to live alone. There it was, the low blow. I felt the anger bubble inside me, but I controlled it. Think I'm better? I let out a dry laugh. I don't need to think it, Nathan. I am. I saw his jaw tighten, and I knew I had hit a nerve. Growing up, Nathan had always been the favorite, the son, the eldest, the one who was never blamed for anything. I was the one who had to share, the one who had to help, the one who always had to give in. But now, I had something he didn't: independent success. And he hated it. Look, Lauren. He started, his voice strained with forced patience, but I cut him off immediately. No, now you're going to listen to me. I pulled out my phone again and scrolled through my contacts. I'm calling the police. Nathan's eyes widened in shock. Jessica let out an incredulous laugh. You wouldn't dare! I put the call on speaker and pressed dial. 1, 2... Wait! Nathan shouted, rushing forward to grab my arm. I looked at him with an icy smile. Yes. Lauren, please. There's no need to make this bigger than it is. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, really? What do you call breaking into someone's home, changing the locks, and kicking out the legal owner? Nathan swallowed hard. He knew the answer. Look, just give me a couple of days. Jessica turned to him in fury. A couple of days? Are you kidding me? Nathan ignored her and looked at me pleadingly. We'll sort this out. We'll leave. I ended the call before it connected and gave him a victorious smile. You have 48 hours, not a minute more. Without another word, I grabbed one of my boxes with my belongings and walked toward the door. Just before stepping out, I turned and looked over my shoulder. Oh, and by the way, if a single one of my things goes missing, I'll press charges anyway. I left before they could say anything else. As I walked down the stairs, adrenaline rushed through my veins. Nathan was cornered and he knew it. But I wasn't stupid. I knew my brother wouldn't give up so easily. So as soon as I stepped out of my own building, I did 3 things I called a locksmith. I wasn't about to let them get away with this again. If Nathan didn't leave in 48 hours, I'd be the one changing the locks. I called my lawyer. Yes, I had a lawyer because unlike my family, I actually thought ahead. I called Mom. The moment she answered, I was already expecting her fake concerned tone. "Lauren, sweetheart, why all the fuss? Nathan told me you had a hysterical meltdown." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. "Tell me the truth, Mom. How long have you known they moved into my apartment?" There was a pause just long enough to confirm my suspicions. "Don't see it that way. They have a child, Lauren." I smiled without humor. "Uh-huh. So you did know. Don't exaggerate. And if they had taken over someone else's home, would you justify it then? But it's not someone else's, Lauren. It's your brother. Family helps family. The same old phrase. No, Mom. Family doesn't steal from family." "Lauren," I hung up. I knew Nathan would try something. Maybe Mom would call to manipulate me. Maybe Jessica would put on some victim act. I didn't care. This time when they left, I was going to make sure it was for good. The next 2 days were hell-constant calls and messages. Mom, Dad, Nathan, Jessica, all of them trying to make me change my mind. "Lauren, do you really want your nephew to be homeless?" Mom's voice was heavy with guilt as if I were a heartless monster. "Sweetheart, just think this through." Dad, always the useless peacemaker. "Lauren, this is ridiculous. You're acting like a child." Nathan, growing desperate. "Auntie, how can you be so cold? We just wanted stability for our son." Jessica, the queen of emotional manipulation. I ignored every single one of them. While they wasted time trying to guilt-trip me, I carried out my plan. Update lock change at 7 a.m. on the second day. The locksmith was already at my door. "So they changed the lock without your permission," the man murmured as he examined it. "Yes," I said, crossing my arms, "and now I want it back." In less than 30 minutes, Nathan and Jessica no longer had access to my apartment. No more invasion, no more excuses. Nathan tried calling me at noon. I ignored him. At 5 p.m., he showed up at the building. He pounded on the door like a lunatic. "Lauren, open the door now." I sat calmly on my couch sipping my coffee while he kept shouting from the hallway. After 10 minutes, he gave up. The message was clear. The next day, Mom decided to get involved. "Sweetheart, we need to talk." We met at a coffee shop near her house. She arrived with her usual martyr expression, the one she always used to make me feel guilty. "This has gone too far," she said, setting her cup of tea on the table. "Nathan is devastated." I rolled my eyes. "He's devastated because he can't live in my home for free anymore." "Poor thing," Mom sighed as if she were burdened with an impossible daughter. "Look, Lauren, he's your brother. He's not my problem." "Of course he is," she said, frowning. "Family should always help each other." I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. "Tell me something, Mom. If I had broken into Nathan's house without permission, changed the locks, and kicked him out, would you be defending me too?" Mom opened her mouth but said nothing. "That's what I thought." "Lauren." Her voice sounded more tired this time. "Why are you doing this?" I smiled slowly. "Because for the first time in my life, I'm not going to let people walk all over me." Mom stayed silent. She knew she had lost this battle. She stood up, grabbed her coat, and looked at me with sadness. "I just hope one day you understand what it means to be family." I shrugged. "I just hope one day you understand what it means to respect your daughter." She walked away without looking back. That night, when I returned to my apartment, I found an envelope on the floor from Nathan. Inside was a note, his messy handwriting sprawled across the paper. "Congratulations, you won, but don't be surprised when one day you need something and no one is there for you." I let out a laugh and tore the paper in half. Nathan was gone. He had lost. I closed the door and sank onto the couch with a smile. This time, I was the one who set the rules. The silence in my apartment felt different. It was no longer the emptiness of invasion, but the calm of victory. Nathan and Jessica were gone. Their last pathetic threat was in the trash. But I wasn't naive. I knew this wasn't over yet, and I was right. On Sunday morning, my phone rang Mom. I didn't answer. 2 minutes later, another called Dad. I sighed and ignored it. The third call came from an unknown number. "Who is this?" I asked as I picked up. "Lauren, it's Dad." I rolled my eyes. Of course. Now they were calling from another number because they knew I wouldn't pick up. "What do you want?" "Listen." His voice was tired. "Your mother and I have been talking. Can we meet?" "No." A tense silence. "Lauren, we can't keep going like this." "Oh, really?" I said with fake surprise. "Because I can. Nathan is in a really bad place." I laughed. "Yeah, sure. What's wrong? Can't live off of me anymore." Dad sighed. "It's not that. I don't care. Don't call me again to ask for favors." I hung up before he could say another word. That was the first time in my life I had ever hung up on my father, and it felt good. The following weeks were strangely peaceful. No Nathan, no Jessica, no constant feeling that someone else was controlling my life. But as expected, the peace didn't last long. A month later, Jessica sent me a message. "Lauren, I know you're angry, but Nathan has been really depressed. He's not himself. Can we talk?" I stared at the screen, debating whether to laugh or just block her. Depressed. Of course, depressed because his life of comfort at my expense was over. Instead of replying, I did something better. I blocked her number. The truth always wins. The last thing I heard about Nathan came from a cousin during a family gathering months later. His plan to find a better place had failed. Without my free apartment, he and Jessica had to rent a tiny place in New Jersey, far from their ideal life in Manhattan. And best of all, Jessica left him. "She said she got tired of Nathan doing nothing," my cousin said while stirring her coffee. "She took the kid and filed for divorce." I smiled and took a sip of my wine. Karma. Over time, Mom and Dad tried to smooth things over, but it was never the same. The distance between us wasn't just physical, it was emotional. I was no longer the obedient daughter who said yes to everything, and they had no idea how to handle that. So eventually they stopped trying. The last time I saw Nathan was by chance months later. I was walking past a coffee shop, and there he was, phone in hand, staring blankly. He saw me. I saw him. We didn't say a word. We just kept walking because he was no longer part of my life. The morning sun filtered through my window, illuminating every corner of my home, because yes, now it was truly mine. No more toys scattered around, no more rearranged furniture, no more intruders making decisions for me. I walked through my living room with a cup of coffee, savoring the silence, a different kind of silence. Before, it had felt empty, as if something was missing. Now, it felt like freedom. I sat on the couch and opened my laptop. I had been thinking about something for days, a Reddit post. My story. I had written it last night, but I hadn't dared to post it until now. My brother and his wife took over my apartment because they needed it more. When I kicked them out, my family painted me as the villain. Now my brother is broke, his wife left him, and my parents are trying to reconnect as if nothing happened. They call me cold. They say family is the most important thing, that I should be more understanding. But why am I always the one who has to understand? Why is it never them? Should I forgive them or cut them off forever? I read the question over and over again. Did I really want reconciliation? I stared at the screen, thinking. Dad had sent me a message the other day. "Lauren, can we talk? Your mother is worried." Worried about what? Because Nathan was broke, because Jessica had left him, because their child had to live in a modest apartment instead of mine. Not because they had hurt me, not because they felt guilty, but because to them I was only useful as long as I could give them something. I took a deep breath and lowered my gaze to the keyboard. My heart pounded. Whatever I decided now would shape the rest of my life. I could ignore them forever. I could give them another chance. I could get revenge. I bit my lip. The question was still there. The cursor kept blinking. I still didn't know what to do, so I pressed my lips together and hit post. Now all that was left was to wait. I sank into the couch, took another sip of coffee, and opened the comments. What would you do in my place? I woke up to the sound of hundreds of notifications. My Reddit post had blown up. Thousands of people were commenting, sharing opinions, analyzing my story as if it were a TV series. But what shocked me the most were the comments that weren't on my side. I don't know, Lauren. I get that your brother was wrong, but did he really have to end up on the street with his kid? After all, he's family. The apartment belonged to your grandmother, and you were both her grandchildren. It doesn't seem fair that only you got it. Didn't Nathan deserve something too? I'm not saying your brother was a saint, but changing the locks and kicking them out in 48 hours wasn't that too much. In the end, it backfired on you, didn't it? Because your parents are still on Nathan's side. Seems like no matter what you did, you were never going to win. That last comment hit harder than I expected because they were right. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. My parents. They had always taken Nathan's side. Ever since we were kids, he was the eldest son, the one who made mom and dad beam with pride at family gatherings, the one who got words of encouragement when he failed, the one who never had to prove he was worthy of love. I, on the other hand, had to earn it. If I got good grades, it was the least expected of me. If I had problems, it was because I was too sensitive. If I needed something, there were always more important things to take care of. But with my paternal grandmother, it was different. She was the only one who made me feel like I belonged, maybe because she knew what it was like to be left out. My mother never liked her. They never got along. I guess in her mind, I was just her mother-in-law's granddaughter, not her daughter. So it was my grandmother who was there for me when my parents weren't. She taught me how to cook, how to care for plants. She told me stories of her youth in New Orleans while we sipped hot chocolate in the winter. That's why she left me her apartment. It wasn't favoritism, it was love. But the moment the inheritance was read, my parents made it seem like an injustice. It's not fair, they said. Grandma didn't think about Nathan's future. You don't need that much space, Lauren. Don't be so stubborn. He's still your brother. All of it came rushing back as I read the comments on Reddit, and I realized something I had never wanted to admit. Yes, I was angry about how they had treated me. Yes, I was sick of always being the one who had to compromise. But more than anything, yes, I envied Nathan. I saw it in a comment and I almost dropped my phone. Lauren, I know your brother treated you badly, but have you ever considered that your anger isn't just about this situation? It seems like you've spent your whole life wanting your parents to see you, to choose you for once, but they never did. Maybe part of your resentment comes from that. Ugh, seriously. Yes, that was it. I had always hoped that just once my parents would defend me, that they would say, Lauren is right, this belongs to her, that they wouldn't automatically take Nathan's side, but they never did. And I had spent years pretending it didn't hurt, convincing myself that I didn't need their approval. But if I truly didn't care, why did it hurt so much? I rubbed my face with both hands. I had no answers. Should I talk to my parents about this? Would it even be worth it? Or more importantly, did I even want to have a relationship with them anymore? The question lingered in my mind as I stared at the screen. My post kept gathering comments, but this time I wasn't sure I wanted to keep reading.